Well, hello and welcome to the Gridiron Show, a little bonus edition of the Gridiron Show as we look forward to Super Wildcard Weekend. I'd kind of forgotten it was called that until I was looking up at a preview of the games to see what all the lines were, and I'd forgotten they'd gone with the whole Super Wildcard Weekend, which is their justification for putting two not very good extra teams into the playoffs and adding an extra game in. But it's going to be fun. I can't wait. I think there are some great games across this weekend. I'm with Gavin, joined by features editor for Gridiron, Simon Clancy. Simon, you and I are in the playoffs. How are you feeling ahead of Sunday?
Oh, I can't wait to get blown out by 50 points on national TV, Will. Given that we've only got 11 fit men in the entire team. So, yeah, I'm so counting down the seconds.
A lot of exciting two-way players by the sounds of it then. I'm all
for
it.
I mean, I think three-way players. I think Jason Sanders, the kicker, is going to kick. He's also going to play left guard, and I think he's going to play free safety as well. So, and if there's an illness in the coaching staff, he could step in there too. So,
I was just thinking, I can't wait to see Teron Armstead like as a rangy outside corner.
Yeah, he's not playing. He's not playing, mate. So
oh, God damn it.
Try and pick a player that's actually going to play.
I try. Yeah, but I just thought who'd be the funniest. I know, the left tackle. There we go. Sorry. And he's already shook his head at me in annoyance because if he feels like it was a little dig. It wasn't a little dig, Ollie.
It was. It absolutely was.
I know you so well that was not just a little dig. It was a full-blown elbow to the ribs. Was that Simon's phone going? Was that the Dolphins backroom staff saying, Simon, we know how good you are as a wide receiver in your exploits against the Gridiron team on the tour 4 or 5 years ago. Will you come and play in Buffalo?
That was pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, Simon's got a pretty lithe arm. He could probably start a quarterback this weekend.
Yeah, I reckon I'd have a shot. He'd put me into the fourth quarter if we were trailing.
Got a better concussion record.
Well, yes, if. Who am I kidding?
Oh, buddy, it's fine. It's fine. We're going to go through all the games happening this weekend. The people at Gridiron are desperate for us to pick some kind of upset. I went through the lines and I've got one game being an upset, and it's the tightest line of the whole weekend. So it doesn't even really feel like an upset, but there we go.
I've got an upset for you.
Hey, here we go. That's what I want to hear. First, before we just get to that, a little update from earlier in the week. I know we've not gone through all the coaching situations yet. I think that's something that we'll do as we go through the off-season and people start to interview and process. It's always a bit of a weird format to do that in podcasts because by the time you're listening to this tomorrow morning, loads of news might have happened. But I just wanted to mention Derek Carr. We figured he was out of town after they dropped him for the last 2 games of the season. Now confirmed he will be departing the Las Vegas Raiders, looking to trade him before. They've got a really tight deadline on this, actually. They have to trade him before February 15th if they want to cut him for the minimal dead cap that they'd be able to cut him for. So if they cut him on February 15th, he only counts for about $5.5 million against the dead cap. This was basically a 3-year extension that was really a 1-year deal and really set up as very team-friendly. What it does mean is if somebody comes in and does trade for him, then they're going to be getting 3 years of a middling quarterback at a decent price, but also knowing that, again, he can be cut after 1 season, after 2 years, and it never costs them a huge amount of money. Simon, do you reckon we get somebody swoop in and try and get a deal done, or is everyone just going to sit and wait for that February 15th and then we see, what we already decided it's over half the teams in the NFL looking for a new starting quarterback, so suddenly there might be a bidding war.
I definitely think there's going to be a lot of suitors for his services, and I think the Raiders should move quick on this. I don't know why Derek Carr would move quick on this, though. Why would you waive your no trade clause? I mean, surely you should just force the Raiders to try and cut you so that you then can pick your own new team, get a better contract, and that new team doesn't have to give up assets for you. To me, that just seems like the most sensible thing. I mean, look, I think you're looking at a, top 14 quarterback? You know, he can be a top 8 quarterback on his very best day. Other times, I think he's a bit of an enigma. But in a quarterback-starved league, I think there are going to be teams out there that show interest. I think it's going to be really interesting, though, because of the age, because of the contract, because of the enigmatic performances. I wonder who is going to be that suitor, really, especially when you consider there's likely to be 4, maybe 5, but almost certainly 4 quarterbacks go in the first round in the draft. Carolina, is it I don't think it'll be the Colts. I just don't think they'll risk it again after the disastrous run of veteran quarterbacks they've had.
At least this time he'd be younger than already retirement age.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see where he ends up, because I don't think it's necessarily going to be. There will definitely be suitors. I just wonder what the trade talks will be, because do you want a veteran guy who's probably is he going to all of a sudden overnight Ollie turn into a top 8, top 7, top 5 quarterback? I don't think so at all. And he was pretty up and down this season despite having Devontae Adams with him. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know where he ends up. People talking about Pittsburgh and those aren't going to happen at all. I think Carolina would be a good landing spot, but beyond that, I'm not 100% sure where I see him go, really. Ollie, what do you think?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? I'm looking at the draft, 23 draft order at the moment. So number 1 is the Bears. They've got Fields. They're not going to pick for a quarterback. Go for a quarterback in there. They might.
They're teasing that, but I don't think they are.
I don't think they will.
That's all about pitching for the draft pick, surely.
I think if you remove Justin Fields' ability to move the ball with his legs and look at him solely as a pocket passing quarterback, you would have to have some fairly significant questions about whether or not Justin Fields as a quarterback throwing the ball is the answer to the question. Yes, there are issues with the talent, and yes, he does have the ability to run, and we've removed that. But look at what's happened to Lamar Jackson. Has missed multiple games, I think 6+ games over the last 2 seasons. If that's how you're making your money in terms of running, that's not going to be a particularly longevity is not necessarily in his future. I do think it'll be interesting. I look at someone like Will Levis and just wonder whether or not they just think, this kid could be something special, and maybe they deal Justin Fields. I don't know. You're probably right. Well, it probably is.
There is that option as well. You trade Justin Fields and somebody gives you a couple of firsts for him, and you still take a quarterback, which actually in this season, with him still on a rookie deal, I think somebody does at least give you 2 firsts for him. And actually, I think it's fascinating. Like, if Derek Carr was on a longer term deal, I think there's somebody who would give up a first rounder for him. I think if Jimmy Garoppolo had proved that he was healthy, there's probably somebody who would give up a second rounder for him. Like, guys who aren't worth that much, but it's such a weak quarterback market this year that I just think that overpaying could definitely be the order of the day. And somebody like that, somebody could,
The thing with the Bears picking first is that they're not going to pick a player that's going to help Justin Fields.
No.
It's either going to be a quarterback, it's going to be Jalen Carter, or it's going to be Will Anderson. That's it. It's going to be one of those, and none of those players help Justin Fields. So I do think it's interesting, and I do.
This Derek Carr conversation is very quick.
I know we're going off topic.
It's a Chicago Bears conversation, all because Ollie went on to the draft. Ollie, right? Derek Carr makes the Jets better immediately, right? Or Washington better immediately, right? Like, there's some teams who are sat on the edge of that playoffs. If you look at those kind of 7 and 10 teams in and around that area, there's a few of those who, with competent quarterback play, could be a playoff team immediately.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, you look at the I don't think that the Lions could be one that he goes to, but do they go in and get another quarterback from another team when they've got the 6th pick? And could they move up, go above someone like Arizona, who looks, if Kyler Murray is going to be a party to the new hiring of their coach, then it seems like Kyler Murray is going to be back for the Cardinals. So I'm not sure.
Jared Goff is better than Derek Carr.
Well, yeah, exactly. So they're not. He's not going to go to any of those. The Raiders, they need a quarterback. Oh wait, that's where he's coming from.
I think Washington. Will's mentioned Washington. I think that's I feel like Taylor Heineke's had a fairly rough time of it, actually, because I don't think he's been particularly bad. I think somehow they are intrigued by, but you look at that wide receiver talent with McLaurin and Dotson, and the players, they got Logan Thomas at tight end, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. I think that Derek Carr would make a lot of sense.
And I think the Jets as well. I think the Jets makes a lot of sense, given.
Do you think he could handle New York?
Yeah, I think he probably could. I think he's a stoic character. All right, he'd have to play in the cold, and he's going from a dome field to an open one and all of that. But the market wise, I think he probably could. He seems a pretty stoic character. So yeah, I think Jets or Washington. Washington's a great shout as well.
All right, let's turn our attention to the games this weekend. Let's just hit them chronologically, work our way through them. Starting off in San Francisco, Saturday night, 9:30 UK time. It's apparently going to be rainy in San Francisco this weekend. Happens to be a couple of teams with pretty decent run games. Plenty of Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell on one side, Kenneth Walker on the other. Of course, being divisional rivals, these two teams have faced twice this season already. The 49ers coming out on top both times. They hammered the Seahawks at home earlier in the season by 20 points, and the Seahawks' only points in that game coming off a blocked field goal returned for a touchdown. Nothing scored on offense. Second matchup was tighter, only 8 points in Seattle, but it was quite a weird game where the 49ers had a couple of, went for it on fourth down and was stopped a couple of times in Seahawks territory, and a late touchdown kind of made it a one-score game. But there's all this we've already talked to, and you'll hear it if you go to the Tales from the Bay podcast. We've talked to Javon Kinlaw and Aaron Banks this week, and everyone's giving it that same thing that everyone always gives it. It's tough to play a team 3 times. 49ers did beat the Rams twice last year in the regular season, lost to them in the NFC Championship game, but I don't know, I obviously have a bias in this, but Ollie, I feel like there is a disparity between these two that there wasn't between the Rams and 49ers last year.
A massive one, an absolutely gargantuan one, and that's all because of the introduction of Christian McCaffrey into that offense, who it just expands everything, and the you could say luck in Brock Purdy, the Brocket ship, or whatever you want to call him, just being able to handle the offense. Obviously, it feels like it's slightly scaled down from what it was with Jimmy G, but I think that it's starting to get scaled up as he's starting to learn the offense more and more and more. They're just way too talented comparatively across the board, on all facets, aren't they? Like the offense is just electric with all of those different weapons. George Kittle, I know, made Simon's team of the year,
All
isn't it?
dudes team.
All dudes team.
All
He
dudes.
is one of
Oh,
those. If nothing else, he is one of those.
And we'll get
He's an
the
absolute dude.
trophy off to him as soon as we can. But so Kittle's had a really, really good year, and when you've got him making tiptoe catches in the back of the end zone, and the offense just really humming and not really missing a beat since 2 quarterbacks have gone down, and then add to that the defense. I just don't think the Seahawks have got enough, despite being really well coached this year by Pete Carroll.
Simon?
Yeah, I was going to give this as an upset in that you play. Look, I think the 49ers can win the Super Bowl. I just do think that sometimes when you play teams a number of times, weird stuff can happen. Brock Purdy 6-0. He's been phenomenal, but there's going to have to be at some point a down period, a down quarter, a down half, a down game. He's been amazing to this point, but history says that it will happen. This is the biggest game of his career. I suppose what swings it for me is that I just look at the cold, hard stat. You talk about that game that was in Seattle. That game was tight until that Travis Homer fumble. But I think the thing that probably just does it for me is that you look at some of the core stats. And I'm not a massive stat person, but the 49ers lead the NFL in yards after the catch. The Seahawks defense gives up the second most yards after catch. The Seahawks allow 7.9 yards per catch to tight ends and running backs, which is a league high. And the 2 hottest players on the 49ers offense over the last month have been George Kittle, the tight end, and Christian McCaffrey, the running back, in terms of skill position players. So, I think the 49ers will win. I think the 49ers are good enough to go to the Super Bowl and win. And this could also be a truth in that I wouldn't be shocked if there was just a surprise solely because of the fact that the teams know each other so well. Geno Smith has had a good year. He's got good players to throw to. They've got a good running game. I think the rookies have developed well at tackle. Defensively, Jordan Brooks is a big loss in terms of the injuries. They've got good corners. Quandre Diggs is, good player on the back end. They've got a good kicking game. I think the 49ers win, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was the other way around.
This is a Seattle team that went 6-2 and ended the season 9-8. You know, there's a lot of other teams who are in that area who lost a huge amount of momentum in the second half of the year. And yet what I did see in the Rams win, in the Jets win, was that there were suddenly explosive plays back in the offense, which was missing so much over that streak of games where they lost maths in my head quickly, 6-8 or whatever that run was. So I think that the Seahawks are probably better than they were than the other two times we faced them earlier in the year, but I am picking the 49ers this. The Seahawks have been given, I think, 10 points, and I kind of fancy them to cover. I kind of fancy it to be in the rain, tighter than people are expecting, but I do fancy a 49ers win. Let's turn our attention to Jacksonville. The Jaguars, with a brilliant second half of the season, winning the AFC South, faced the Los Angeles Chargers and the big armed quarterback Justin Herbert. It's a rematch from week 3 where the Jags, let's not forget, destroyed the Chargers in LA 38-10. And yet the Chargers come into this one favored. They have Joey Bosa back now. They have Mike Williams potentially playing this weekend. Unfortunately, Rashawn Slater won't be back, but if they progress past this stage, could be back during the playoffs, which is sensational news for them if it does happen. Yeah, the Chargers come into this as 2.5-point favorites, interestingly.
Which is
I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I really do. I think it could go one of two ways. So I think the Jags can be quite annoying in not being able to get the ball moving properly on offense at times. Not recently, not with Trevor Lawrence's the way he's been playing, but the game against the Titans is a bit of a worry. So that could then drag down the Chargers with them and we'll get like a game for the purists, despite all of the talent that is on the Chargers. Now, I say that could happen because Brandon Staley is, he's just not. I don't think he's a very good coach. The antics in keeping all the starters in last week for too long, some of the decisions that he's historically made over the last couple of seasons, it could turn into this bit turgidy Jags Chargers or Jags Titans type game. What I'm actually thinking is going to happen is that the Jags offense last week looked really good. Christian Kirk's starting to find his feet. Travis Etienne has looked excellent ever since Robinson's left. In any case, Trevor Lawrence has been balling out, bar the Titans game, and the Chargers have just got so much going on. So it could be. I think it's either feast or famine. We'll have the famine of not many points, or we'll have loads and loads of points. I'm not sure there's an in between point, and I'm leaning towards the Jags in this. I think that stadium can get loud when it wants to and put a load of pressure onto the Chargers. I'm going Jags.
I saw today that the passer rating improvement for Trevor Lawrence from year 1 to year 2 is the biggest increase in league history from a rookie to a sophomore.
Since Terry Bradshaw,
from a rookie to a sophomore season. And you mentioned Christian Kirk there. The contract was much maligned, but he's had a unbelievable share this year, and actually 815 receiving yards from the slot, only behind CeeDee Lamb in terms of taking catches from that position on the alignment. You mentioned the running game as well. Like, that offense really does feel like it's fixed. I still feel like Austin Eckler plays a huge part in this game for me, Simon, because those young rookie linebackers, whilst they've been allowed to roam free and do some fun stuff and blitz and cover, and discipline has been a little bit of an issue. And I feel like if the Chargers approach this in a kind of very sensible, run the ball, like matriculate down the field kind of manner, I think they can score plenty of points on Jacksonville. And that's the one side of the ball I'm concerned about. But I've also picked the Jags for this one to get a minor upset.
Yeah, I can see. Look, I'm doing a lot of fence sitting here. I can see the Chargers winning the whole thing, right? Because Justin Herbert is an absolute mutant. I think ultimately, though, this will come down to coaching, and it's why I think the Jaguars will win this game. I love what Trevor Lawrence has done in the second half of the season. I think he's been absolutely spectacular. But I just think Doug Peterson is just a better coach than Brandon Staley. Doug Peterson is 4-1 as an underdog in the playoffs, second best only to Tom Flores, who was 5-0 as an underdog. And I think his experience, you look at the big playoff game. It wasn't a playoff game, but it was a win and in scenario last year for the Chargers, and how badly coached a game it was for the Chargers in terms of what Brandon Staley did in that game, and really cost the Chargers a place in the playoffs. I think, and I just it comes back to one thing for me. Trevor Lawrence has never lost a game in high school, in college, or in the NFL on a Saturday. And that is everything you need to know about why the Jaguars will beat the Chargers.
I don't like that we've clean sweeped it. I do not like that. I am that terrifies me. But I feel like we're going to clean sweep the first game on Sunday night as well.
Can I ask how many high schools play on Saturday and how many NFL teams play on a Saturday? But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I love.
It doesn't matter. Stop
this narrative.
Intrinsically investigating my narrative, Ollie.
He's never lost an NFL game on a Wednesday. It's incredible.
Exactly. I mean,
stop avoiding talking about the Bills and the Dolphins, Simon. Come on.
The line's gone dead. I can't.
I know. I don't want to be this harsh. I just, it just.
No, it's fine. I think. Look, I think they played two incredible games this season. It was 20-19 to the Dolphins in Miami, and it was 31-28 or 31-27 to Buffalo 4 weeks ago. Two really brilliant games. The game in the snow was fantastic. Whoever has the ball last essentially wins, which the Bills did, and they drove down the field and Tyler Bass kicked the field goal to win it at the end. So I think if everybody was healthy with the Dolphins, it would be a really good game. I think, what Mike McDaniel and Tua do to that Bills defense is there for everybody to see. It's happened in those two games. What I think now is that essentially Miami are starting a third string quarterback. They'll start their sixth string left tackle, because I don't think Teron Armstead is going to play. Their offensive line will be made up of potentially 2 practice squad players and two street free agents, one of whom wasn't even on the team 10 days ago, who might even start at left tackle, which is the most bizarre thing. Jalen Waddle's got a shoulder injury. Tyreek Hill's got an ankle problem, which meant that he kept having to come out of the last 2 games. And then defensively, obviously, there's all the issues on the back end. Raheem Mostert's got a broken thumb and probably won't play. So look, it's great that the Dolphins are in the playoffs, but it's kind of disappointing because you want to be competitive. I don't want to get on Saturday night and on Sunday afternoon, on national television and shown up, and I'm young enough to remember the 62-7. That was and it kind of feels like perhaps not that sort of territory, but you could absolutely see the Bills putting up a big score at home. Damar Hamlin, obviously amazing news that he's been released from hospital in Buffalo. I'm sure he'll be at the game on Sunday. Why wouldn't he be? And the emotion, the everything that goes into it. And you're asking Skylar Thompson, a 7th round rookie out of Kansas State, to beat probably the best team in the league. And I just don't think it's going to happen. The offense looks so different when Tua's not playing in terms of how they're able to move the ball through the air. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but injuries are a part of the game. We've just been absolutely screwed by them, and I think we'll get screwed on Sunday, unfortunately.
I think we can talk more about both the say something miraculous doesn't happen. We're going to have plenty of time next week and beyond to talk about the off season for Miami and what they do at quarterback, etc. And equally, I think we'll have plenty more time to talk about the Bills. But watching that game last Sunday and seeing the throws that Josh Allen made, I mean, the obvious one being the Stephon Diggs touchdown, but you compare it with just
John Brown throw was
and you compare it with 2 or 3 weeks earlier when he was still hitching that elbow on the sideline and still icing it up, and still, like, if Josh Allen is full go Josh Allen, which it looked like he was on Sunday, then right now the Bills are my pick for the AFC, in a very strong AFC where I do love the Bengals and I do love the Chiefs. And you already mentioned the Chargers could come out of nowhere to do something. And we've all picked the Jags to beat the Chargers. So, like, I don't get me wrong, I get that it's the harder conference to come out of, but that Bills team, it feels like a bit of a team of destiny right now with the way that it's going and the way that Josh Allen's got healthy at the right moment. It's funny this weekend that I would say the 2 games which are probably going to get the smallest TV audiences, the least national interest, the least kind of storylines in the build-up for them, are probably going to end up being the 2 best games of the weekend in terms of how close they are, because I love Chargers-Jags. And I honestly, I know that a few weeks ago they played out the Fraud Bowl, which saw the last minute field goal to win it. Giants, Vikings, this is the ultimate kind of coin flip for me. I don't know about you, Simon. I'm struggling to pick this one.
I'm going with the Giants, Ollie.
Well,
I don't know about you, but I know that they had the 61-yard field goal at the end of the game to win it a few weeks ago. But, they lack receiving talent, but, Daniel Jones has played really well this season. He can move the ball with his legs, which is something that the Vikings don't like. They can run the ball with Saquon. They've got a decent defense. And I've always thought all season long that the Vikings are frauds, and I think they'll get found out in the playoffs. I think this is strike this one up, Ollie, as a win for the Giants.
I've gone the same. I think the Giants, I think it was really beneficial that they rested nearly everybody last week, and or they take the defeat or whatever, but it's all about the playoff game. They go to Minnesota. Minnesota are the ultimate sheep in wolf's clothing, aren't they? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. That one as well. The other way around. I don't see the sheep in wolf's clothing either.
Lamb in grandma's clothing.
Yeah, but they are. Aside from Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, I'm struggling, and a few pieces maybe on the defense, but that defensive line has taken a massive downgrade. Daniel Hunter, no relation, by the way. He's really regressed. Zadarius Smith looked great at the beginning of the season, but has fallen away. Maybe they're waiting to get going again in the playoffs, but I really like the way Brian Daboll has molded this team into a bit of his image, and they're pragmatic. They use what they have really well. They don't really go beyond or try anything outside of that, and it's worked for them. 9 wins, and I've got them to upset the Vikings.
All right, I'm going to be the one person that is a Muggins then, and I'm going to pick Minnesota because actually I do think their defense is good enough to stop the New York Giants. I do think that defensive line is good enough. I do think that Patrick Peterson's playing at a level that we've not seen him play for 3 or 4 years this year, and there's enough young support in that secondary. I don't think they'll go any further, and I love the way that Daboll has coached this Giants team up, and I've got a lot of love for what they've done this year. I just think that the playoffs is going to be a step too far, and I'm going to take the Vikings. So right. I do enjoy, you mentioned Daniel Jones and what he can do with his legs. Did everyone see Dan Orlovsky's playoff quarterback rankings for the starting quarterbacks in the playoffs?
Nope.
So This is the order that he had it in. I'm going to go reverse order. So he had Skylar Thompson, Brock Purdy, bit harsh, and then Dak Prescott, followed by Kirk Cousins and Geno Smith. He said it's just based on play this year, not overall balance, but Cowboys fans are absolutely livid. He then has Trevor Lawrence below Daniel Jones, which I thought was a bit of a shocker. And then it's Brady, Lamar, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. The left-hand column is, terrifying, and you could pick it in that top 5 in most orders and be fine with it. But I am enjoying Cowboys fans' toys going firmly out of the pram about Dak being in 12th on that list.
If there's ever fans of a franchise who have zero perception of how their team is actually doing and how it's looking, it's the Cowboys, isn't it? I mean, Dak Prescott was dreadful last week. He hasn't been great since he came back from injury. He wasn't that good before injury either. So I don't know what their problem is. I can't argue with that based on play this year. You can't.
It's unfair that he's been picked about Brock Purdy personally.
It may be.
Can I just check again where Skylar Thompson was
14,
on the list?
14.
Oh, really? Disappointing.
He actually put you on the list in 14th and Skylar Thompson in 15th after we discussed that earlier briefly.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah, just
understandable. Yeah. So I just need to warm this all up.
Right. Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern, so 1:15 UK time, and then we'll get on to Monday Night Football. It is the Ravens Bengals. Do we know, is Lamar going to be back Sunday? Still I
Apparently
mean,
not.
that makes this a very, very difficult game to pick anything other than a Bengals domination. I kind of feel like even with Lamar, the Bengals are just a much better all-round team than the Ravens anyway, Ollie. But without that kind of special X factor that can maybe swing things, that just, yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's a divisional game, divisional rivals in the playoffs, and as Simon was saying earlier, funny things do happen. I don't really see it this time round because the Bengals are flying at the moment, but that Baltimore Ravens defense, Roquan Smith just got $100 million deal. That Ravens defense has been so good, really, really good, but they are going up against that absolutely stacked Bengals offense. But yeah, it's such a shame that Lamar can't make it, not just for the playoffs itself, but also he's looking ahead to next year and what's going to happen with his contract situation. I'm sure that's a conversation for the off season, but he needed to play in this game. Yeah,
I don't think it hurts his contract to not play here, but if he'd come in and been brilliant and guided them to either a win or a very tight loss, that wouldn't that I mean just proves how much they need him. I am concerned about just the overall construction of this Ravens team, because without him, it's just not come together at all, Simon.
No, it's been a really strange season for the Ravens, I think. And a lot of that's to do with Lamar, but they can't have not expected it to come. And it goes back to the conversation we had earlier on with Justin Fields, the number of games that he's missed. Ollie just said it's going to be a fascinating discussion in the offseason in terms of what they do with him, whether or not they franchise him, whether or not they sign him to a new contract, whether or not they tag and trade him, who knows. To me, this is an absolute, Bengals by however many, really. I think that in the biggest games, the Bengals, which is now, and you only have to look at the early portion of that Buffalo game before the terrible tragedy with Damar Hamlin. I think you only have to look at how the Bengals were moving the ball up and down the field. Joe Burrow looked absolutely on. He has the gene, whatever it is, he has it, in terms of, I'm pretty sure if you looked it up, he probably hasn't lost a game on Saturday either in high school, college, or the NFL. He's just a special player. And actually, I think the Bengals, if everything goes to them, I think the Bengals could win the Super Bowl this year. I think they're that good. There's been some issues in the running game. Joe Mixon hasn't got to 4 yards per carry. I think defensively, there's a couple of weaknesses, especially with Chidobe Awuzie out and Hendrickson banged up and Sam Hubbard banged up. But I just think they're so good. I just think Joe Burrow is so good. And actually, I've got to give Zach Taylor a bit of credit because actually he's coached them pretty well this season. And maybe I'm just saying that because the counterbalance, because Cliff Kingsbury's been sent back to some.
I still
like
think the offense is too simple and relies too much on those talent levels. And
yeah, sure, but you could say the same about the Dolphins, who are 8-3, doing exactly the same thing. And they can move the ball on the ground. I do really like the Bengals, and I think they'll just have too much for the
And it
for
has
the
been
Ravens
fascinating
this
to see
weekend.
guys like Trenton Irwin come out when they've had those injuries and really perform. Plenty more time to talk about the Bengals because I think they will be in the game in the playoffs next week. And of course, it tees us up for Bengals, Buffalo, this time in Buffalo. And, I think the overall conversation around Damar Hamlin with the news that he's home, that he's been discharged from hospital and everything else has kind of slowed down in terms of the news cycle. But, if that ends up being the first game he attends or, anything that happens around that is going to be a huge emotional moment. So, the NFL loves its storylines, and I suspect we might be getting a pretty special one next weekend. This was always going to be either Sunday night football or Monday night football. I couldn't see it being anything else. And the Dallas Cowboys going to an 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers side, it hurts my brain, a 19th divisional title, a 20th playoff appearance in 22 years in the league, and his first losing season for Tom Brady. with the way that the Cowboys did play against Washington, do we put much stock in that because it was week 18 and maybe the foot came off the gas when they saw just how much the Eagles were blowing out the Giants by? Or should there be some concern, Simon? Because, I mean, Ollie already referenced it, but they were not just like, oh, we're not really playing hard bad. They were just bad.
You know that Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other? That's these two teams. Yeah. That's these two teams, essentially. Look, I think that coming into the season, Dallas, had a bit of a, when Dak Prescott got injured, the excuse was that Dak is injured and that's why we're not playing particularly well. And then when Dak came back and was healthy and they were still playing bad, the excuse disappeared. I think over the last 5 weeks, they've sort of backed their way into the playoffs. They've not been very good. They've not been very good on defense. They've not been very good on offense. They've not been consistent enough in the run game. I think the defense has gone from giving up 18 points per game in the first 12 to almost 30 points per game in the last 6. And yes, you could take the Washington game out of the equation, but I think that just takes it down to 27.9 points per game. I think that the Buccaneers will win this. I think that Tom Brady, I just think this will be one of the... sorry, my next door neighbour's singing
Can
really
I ask
loudly.
what they're
It's
singing?
coming through the wall. I don't know. I can't hear it because it's an old Victorian house and the walls are quite thick, but I can just hear him singing. He's a massive Manchester City fan, but I don't think City are playing tonight, are they? So I don't know why he's singing. But anyway,
there was a sensational moment on TalkSport today where Jim White had Farhad Mashiri on, the Everton owner, and you could just hear in the background very quietly, "Eye of the Tiger." coming from Mashiri. Just like, that is brilliant. Glorious. Like, he's psyched himself up for the call.
Number one when I was born, by the way.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the Buccaneers will win this, Ollie.
Ollie?
Sorry, it was number one when I was born. So
there we go. Yeah. Nice. All right. Yeah. Maybe Farhad Mashiri was celebrating your birthday.
Yeah, in the wrong month.
Yeah, months early.
Thanks, Farhad. I appreciate it.
How do you fancy Cowboys Bucks, Ollie?
I've got down the Cowboys to win, but I'm not really sure why. I don't think the Bucks have been very good, but it's Brady. It seems like he's got that connection back with Mike Evans. Who knows whatever happened there? Maybe because Evans didn't invite him out to the Hofbrau house in Munich when we were out there. The Bucks are a weird one. The running game really hasn't been good. They've been disjointed across the board. But Brady has managed to pull it all together. The defense has been all right, actually, to be fair. But Brady's managed to pull it all together. I think he's had 3 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter this season. And that's out of the 8 wins that they've had in the official NFC disgrace. It's back. Everyone's happy that the NFC disgrace is back. So I've put down the Cowboys, but I may have just convinced myself
of the 3 times a team with a losing record has gone to the playoffs in a non-strike year, taking 82 out of it. The team with a losing record, who's a divisional champion, going up against the best non-division winning seed, has won 2 out of 3 times. It's only Washington last time out in 2020 who had lost. And I just think I've picked the Cowboys as well, but there is part of me that's like, let's see a Bucks win and let's see Mike McCarthy go down in flames and the Cowboys absolutely lose their minds. And that's what I'm kind of rooting for, because I think it'd be fun. But I do think the Cowboys, if they turn up, if that front end of that defense turns up and gets pressure on Tom Brady, I feel like I'm going to roll out a whole bunch of ifs here. Maybe I do fancy Tampa Bay. Maybe I'm going to switch my pick.
That's exactly what I just did after hearing Simon.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen is I'm going to keep on the Cowboys until Monday when we see some kind of upset over the weekend, and then I'll get really emboldened and switch my pick on Monday, because I'll be like, no, if the Giants can beat the Vikings and the Seahawks can beat the 49ers, then of course the Bucks are going to win. Like, yeah, whatever that might be. I'm excited. What super wildcard weekend. Then the best weekend of football next weekend, divisional round on the horizon. And we're just a little over 4 weeks away from Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. Very, very exciting. Gents, any final thoughts ahead of the weekend?
Tiger Feet by
How
Mud was
weird's
number
that?
one when
If
I was born.
Will's got
Ollie.
a song with Tiger in it, that would be the weirdest thing ever. Go on, Will.
Oh my God!
yourself.
Yeah, where were you born,
I'm
Will?
pretty sure Stevie Wonder was number one when I was.
Let's just check though, Will. What's your birthday?
I'm not giving out my date of birth on a podcast.
Come on.
I can tell you that
Nobody
I just
cares.
called to say I love you by Stevie Wonder was number one on the day I was born.
Well, that's ruined it. So
Oh, you
probably just cut this.
What
out.
other
so
Tiger songs
disappointing.
are there?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's got to be loads of songs with Tiger in the day. Let's have a look.
I've got to go and do
Songs
another
with
podcast. I've got to go and
Tiger
record the
This is
49ers
way-
show.
No. This is way more important.
I mean, there's a thing here called the 50 best songs with Tiger in the
None
title.
of them were number one in 1984 when I was born, were they? So, sorry, guys. We'll
Well,
find
you
another
never know.
significant life moment of mine where a Tiger song was number one, and everyone can be happy about it. Gents, always a pleasure. Look forward to firing back and forth on the WhatsApps when all of our predictions go down in flames this weekend. Thank you, everyone, for listening, engaging on social media at UK Gridiron on Instagram, at Gridiron on Twitter. You can find us on TikTok and all those other good places as well. And do check out Faithful to the Bay this week. So we've got Mooch on, which is very exciting. So we're going to be doing that shortly. And that will also be out on the Gridiron podcast feed. Thank you so much for listening.
See you in Canton.
Skylar. See you in Canton.
You're going to be laughing next week when he beats
no
the
one will be
Bills.
laughing. That will be national mourning.
Nobody
Thank you,
will be
gents. Thank
laughing.
you for watching and listening. This has been the Gridiron Show.